While I was in St. George, Utah on September 22nd, 2013, I interviewed Ed Kociela. Ed's a newspaperman. He moved to that area because he wanted to be close to get the stories from inside Polygamy Today. Ed's only about 40 miles away from where Warren Jeffs rules with an iron fist. Yes, from inside his prison cell, with the use of a telephone, he still speaks for God, alias for Warren Jeffs. Please join us. I am the voice behind the camera.
This is my book, Plagues. It came about after 16 years of working in the newspaper business here in southern Utah and witnessing what was going on in the community. We're about 40 minutes away from the Arizona-Utah state line, where the FLDS has a community that is in Hilldale, Utah, and Colorado City, Arizona, that's pretty familiarly known as Short Creek. It's the center of the FLDS world. Warren Jeffs is the self-proclaimed prophet of the FLDS Church, even though right now he's sitting in a prison cell in Texas for a number of charges of child abuse and child rape.
And he's still running his sheep, or his believers, or his parishioners, actually in a form of slavery from prison, is he not?
Yes, he is, Rebecca. He's issuing orders from his jail cell where we have heard all sorts of different sorts of edicts that have come from him, ranging from restricting the women and children to a diet of twice a day beans and water. We have heard of edicts that came from him that have separated husbands and wives from having any kind of intimacy. However, on the other hand of that, he has named apparently 15 men to impregnate the fertile women, no matter how young they are in the community, with the next generation of FLDS members.
Is that impregnation including the married women, despite the fact they have husbands?
Yes, it is. These 15 men can pick and choose from among the women in the community, and it is their duty to create the next generation.
What has this done to the families?
Well, what it has done is it has put them in an even more estranged situation. As part of that edict, their contact with each other supposedly is no more than a warm handshake between a husband and a wife. If you shake hands and it lasts more than 3 seconds, then it's thought to be a little bit too intimate.
And his followers accept this.
His followers obey him blindly. They're obedient to a T because, as you well know, his whole premise for his church and for his following is their eternal salvation. If you don't follow the prophet's orders, there's no way of making it to the celestial kingdom.
I don't think the average public understands that blind obedience of these polygamous cults. It is not a freedom of choice. It's a presentation that we choose to do this. This is our religion. But it is mandatory, is it not?
Well, it is. It's a form of coercion that begins from the cradle to the grave. Children are born and raised into this religion where they are told from the time they can understand that you will obey and you will do this. You will give your money to the prophet. You will follow his orders. You will participate in plural marriage. You will participate in bleeding the beast. You will be a part of his world, or you will not be a part of anything else. You'll be ostracized. You'll be cast aside. The young men in the community who are tossed out for various reasons from having a feeling of the heart towards a young woman in the community to simply being one of too many males in the community end up on the streets. The women are traded around among the men who decide who's going to marry whom.
Can you explain to the public what bleeding the beast means? Go into that, and then we're going to come back to that subject and get into that further.
Bleeding the beast is a term that's used within the FLDS cult, where they take full advantage of all government welfare and benefit systems. We've got a situation down there right now where the Mojave County Supervisor, Buster Johnson, released a study from the Arizona State Economics Department that shows that on an average since 2011 to 2013, it's been the community of 4,800 people has been receiving approximately $400,000 a month in nutritional benefits from welfare. There is an additional 90,000 incidents of medical treatments that have occurred in that same time span. So we're looking at something like $8 million having been poured into that community in the course of a year and a half. Okay. It comes out to a total of about $27 million total that has been spent on that community of 4,800 people over the past year and a half or so. And that's from the nutritional program and from the medical program in government benefits.
Does that include payments for HUD housing where women are paying rent to their husbands who own houses?
No, it simply is for food and medical benefits. The other kinds of benefits that come in are a separate issue.
And the separate issue benefits are?
Well, you have elderly housing, you have HUD, you have, of course, your general benefits that come into any community for roads and for improvements and for the services that you have. It's a community, a very poor community, where the average income is in most cases listed as zero. We saw a study on that not too long ago, where the income is phenomenally below the poverty level. So as far as property taxes, as far as funding itself, as most communities do, there is none.
Is this applicable to both of those communities, regardless of what side of the state line they're on?
Yes, it is. It happens on the Arizona side of the line, and it happens in the Utah side.
National Geographic published an article about Joe Jessup's family, and the centerfold folded out 3 pages just to show his family in the picture. And they all lived in Hilldale.
Well, there are certain advantages, I guess, in which side of the state line you live on. Warren's complex was actually in Colorado City. A lot of the families lived in Hilldale. The area really is an encompassing area where it is, law enforcement is the Hilldale, Colorado City Town Marshals, which are irreverently called the God Squad. They are a group of 7 police officers who have been empowered to patrol and enforce the law in the community. However, from the time they were formed up to right now today, that law enforcement agency, the town marshals, have an allegiance to Warren Jeffs and the FLDS. When Warren was on the run several years ago, before he was captured and brought to trial in Utah and then in Texas, they vowed publicly an allegiance to Warren, that they would not do anything to him if they found him, caught him, or if he turned up. Buster Johnson, who we mentioned previously, has been working very hard with the Arizona legislature to try and have that agency decertified and bring in the Mojave County sheriffs to patrol it. That is the county that Colorado City sits in. Hilldale sits in Washington County. The law enforcement from the Utah side is a good 40 minutes away, and the patrols out there are very rare. So the town marshals pretty well have everything under their control.
Explain what some of those violations are that those policemen that are dedicated to Warren Jeffs before they are dedicated to the human rights of the American citizen. What do they do that is a violation of human rights?
Well, Rebecca, that's very distressing because we have, as you well know, very high incidence of domestic abuse and violence that take place out in this community. It's endemic, of course, to rural America. the dirty little secret of domestic violence and abuse that takes place. In the instances that we have heard reported out in that area, what occurs is if somebody does dare call the town marshals on an incident like that, they show up, and as long as nobody's killed, basically say, mind your husband. We have had incidents of young girls who have tried to escape, and the town marshals have gone and picked them up and brought them back home. We had a recent situation where a gentleman that I know who does business as a trucking industry, works out there, was on his way in from making a delivery to the community. As he's coming back into town, there was a young girl, about 15 years old, walking on the side of the highway, heading towards the city of Hurricane. He stopped because he could see that she was obviously in distress. She had a small bag with her, and he stopped to see if she was okay, and she wasn't. He offered her a ride. She got into the truck with him and explained that several days before she had celebrated her 15th birthday. And as part of her birthday celebration, she was informed that she was going to be placed into marriage with an older man. She didn't want to have any part of that and was trying to get away. So this gentleman that I know didn't know exactly what to do. He found himself in this situation and figured that the best thing that he could do was to take this child to the Hurricane Police Department, and that they would turn her over to the Department of Child and Family Services here in Utah. That didn't happen. What happened was he took the child to the police department and she was returned home.
I personally know that that is true from experiences that happened in Salt Lake City when I wanted to run away.
It's tragic. You know, as you say, it's an infringement on human rights and dignity, and it's something that occurs repeatedly out there. The women who try to get away, the children who try to get away, are brought back by Warren's God Squad, as they call it. They're returned to the families, they're returned to the situations that they're trying to escape from. It's enslavement. It's a tragic abuse of human rights.
Are you familiar with the stories that came out of there that the women that tried to escape were picked up and thrown into the mental institution down there?
Well, that's a part of FLDS lore and culture and history. If you disagree with the prophet, you must be crazy.
And if they threw him in the mental institution that was funded by the United States government and run by the FLDS, these women had a record that they were mentally ill. It destroyed their work capacity, ability in the future, and their credibility to keep their children. And of course, most of them can't keep their children anyway. Tell the listening audience, who owns the children?
Warren. Warren owns the children because it is his influence. It dates back to before he named himself the prophet of the FLDS Church. Warren ran the Alta Academy up in northern Utah, which was an FLDS school. And he would instruct the children. He would teach them in church doctrine. He would develop the lesson plans, if you will. He would tell them how to stay sweet, how to prepare for their adulthood as an FLDS working man or as a sister wife. He had complete and total control over the young souls that were attending that school. And as we're finding out later, there have been a number of charges of sexual child abuse that occurred when he was running the school, including his own brother.
Define stay sweet.
Stay sweet. Stay sweet, from as I can track it, actually came from Warren's father, Rulon, I believe. It tracks back to that era. Stay sweet was a kind of a code, if you will, or a term that was used to maintain your virtue, to be obedient, to be a part of the system, a part of the FLDS world. Stay sweet meant that you would not show an interest. It was particularly aimed at the young girls. You would not express an interest in one of the young men in the community. That you would hold on to all that is good and your virtue, and that you would be this obedient little slave.
In the FLDS, you stated the children belong to Warren. In all of the other polygamous cults, the children still belong to the priesthood. But there's an irony. Each and every one of these groups claims that their priesthood head is the one and only mouthpiece of God on earth. Yet, the women, the girls, are trafficked back and forth between them all. I can't understand if they believe that, if any man believed that. Why would he send his daughter into a group where he believes that that man is not a prophet of God and he is not the mouthpiece on earth?
Well, I think that's a really good example of just how perverse the communities can be and how intertwined they really are. You know, you have, particularly espoused with what's happening in the media today, with the terms it's a lifestyle choice, and that some of these groups are independents or freelancers or whatever. That's not true. They have links back to the AUB. They have links to the Kingstons, the Allreds, to Warren Just, to the various sects of Mormon fundamentalism, and they know full well what they're doing. They're exchanging children, and it's a perverse group of pedophiles, if you really want to get down to it, that are doing this. They're shipping them across the country. They've gone to Texas. They've gone into Colorado. They've shipped them to South Dakota, into the Pringle area. They've shipped them across the Canadian border. The Canadian law enforcement folks are investigating rather heavily at this moment the trafficking of young girls in Western Canada. And it involves the FLDS group and the Kingstons, as I understand. You know, it's trafficking, and these guys, they know who they are. They know what they are. They know that they're not the mouthpiece of God. They just have that as part of their power structure and part of the image and part of their control over the many people that follow them. And believe me, I really believe that there are a lot more than the estimated 10,000 followers of Mormon fundamentalism.
Oh, there sure are. As you're aware, my mother was an Allred. I was born in the Allred group, but yet my older sister was sent to the group in Mexico. I was sent to the FLDS, and Warren's father, Rulon, performed my marriage when I was a child bride. My younger sister stayed in the Allred group, which is known as the Apostolic United Brethren, which is the group my relative, Cody Brown, belongs to. Cody Brown and I share a maternal grandfather, and also his wife Christine is my cousin. And yet they claim this is a lifestyle choice. What do you think of that, Ed?
Quite frankly, I think Cody Brown is a hypocrite. I think Cody Brown is a liar, and I challenge him to talk about it. You know, we know Cody Brown comes from the AUB. We know the background of the AUB, which does participate in the underage marriage of young girls. It does participate in bleeding the beast. It does participate in the ills of fundamental Mormonism that remove the rights of the women in the community. That's not what you see on the TLC TV network. It's a sham, and it's very disturbing to see a major TV network such as TLC go to these lengths to provide titillating types of television shows as opposed to what TLC stood for, the Learning Channel. Cody makes a great effort to promote what his lifestyle is as a lifestyle choice as opposed to a religious choice. There's evidence, again, that he came from the AUB. The AUB has tried to distance themselves from Cody. He's tried to distance himself from the AUB. And I think that a lot of that has to do, quite frankly, with the image of the show and the people participating in the show, Cody, his wife, and his mistresses. I think TLC has made a concerted effort to do that, so that way the viewership doesn't get the veil lifted on what really takes place in the AUB and what really takes place in fundamental Mormonism. They show Cody as this kind of freelancer who believes in polygamy, and you know, I think in watching Cody on TV, I think there's an awful lot that's scripted. I think that he probably has a lot more awareness of the religious doctrine of the AUB than he lets on. I think he's coached, and I think he's prompted to act the way he does by the TV show's producers. It's an effort for viewers. It's an effort to sanitize the image, if you will. I have no feel for Cody Brown, and like I said, I think he's a liar and a hypocrite.
He has gone public in the Salt Lake City Tribune and other places admitting that he is a member of the AUB. And the AUB is my family. It's where I grew up. And in our basic religion, like every other polygamous cult that claims or blames Mormonism for their own behavior, taught us that plural marriage was a commandment, not a choice. An absolute commandment, and if we did not live plural marriage, we would be damned for time and all eternity. And it was all right with God if we were destroyed, that we should be destroyed. And that was the choice. Would you live it, or would you suffer those consequences? But they play this game now, saying, well, that's not really what it says. There's 3 degrees of heaven, and you just won't go to the highest one. Well, you know, in the doctrines, in the written doctrines that I own, it says you will be destroyed.
Well, you know, that goes back to what you were asking just a little bit ago as to how this all comes about. You know, the statement I made, from cradle to grave. It's what's ingrained into the brains of those who are born into this form of religion, if you will. It's how they are controlled, their eternal salvation. You know, getting back to watching the Sister Wives show. Look at the women in that program. They're not happy. There's no joy. There appears to be little commitment to a religious philosophy, although that is what it's based on. Otherwise, it just becomes a modern-day hippie commune.
Exactly. Except this one's filled with stress that they have to convince the public that they love polygamy because we were told if we didn't accept it and love it and be compatible, that we would lose our salvation. And they're doing a really good job of trying to present that to people, but it isn't really coming through if you pay attention.
No, and no good music.
And what about Love Times 3, Joe Darger?
Well, again, it's an illustration of how the communities are intertwined, the families are intertwined, with 2 of his wives being tied in familial relationship with Cody and the people from his group. It's the same thing. The Dargers, it's the same path. I mean, I don't think you can separate them. See, that's the problem that a lot of people are having. They're looking and saying, well, Cody and his wives, they seem to be okay, and, you know, so what if he wants to have a relationship with a married wife and 4 others who are sister wives? And so if Joe wants to have a wife and sister wives, it's consenting adults, and who cares? That's not the point.
That isn't the truth either.
That's not the point. That's not the truth. It's not what it's all about. There's a large context to what takes place within the polygamous communities and the polygamous beliefs in the polygamous world that people are not looking at. Okay. The problem that we have in the way polygamy is portrayed in the media today is that we look at Cody Brown and the Darger family, and to the uninformed public, it looks like it's simply a lifestyle choice. These people are together and they're enjoying life as a plural family. The real underlying factor is that you cannot look at modern day polygamy without taking the full context of it. You don't see that inherent in the polygamous culture and community is the child abuse, the sexual abuse, the denigration of women's rights, the welfare fraud that takes place in the bleeding the beast, as we've talked about. You hear Cody Brown talk about it's our lifestyle. Lifestyle is going out and playing racquetball 3 times a week to stay in shape. Lifestyle is making choices. You choose a lifestyle. Polygamy is not a choice. As we've mentioned, it's ingrained into these children from the time they're born that you will do this or you will go to hell. If you are brought into a plural marriage, you are given the option of either accepting it or being damned, to the point of, as I understand, the threat of blood atonement. You don't have a choice. Lifestyle is a choice. Polygamy is religious coercion to toe the line and follow a belief pattern that perhaps you don't believe in, but you're too afraid to step away from.
The God of my childhood was so mean. The devil was on unemployment and had only a part-time job as a scapegoat. Explain the God of the FLDS to the public.
The FLDS God, as I understand it, is nothing like the God that I know or feel that I have a relationship with. I don't see forgiveness. I don't see kindness, compassion, warmth, and love as I was raised to believe, or as I have developed to believe God to be. I see a vengeful God. I see a mean, angry God. I see a demanding, overbearing, interfering, unshakable deity that does not deal in fairness, does not deal in forgiveness, does not deal in truth.